would love for you to talk to the person listening and guide them through the process of locating this core memory so that they have that with them as we move forward and you help us define this philosophy that you've created called a rich life.
I love it. Let's do it.
Okay.
So let's start. We're going to start in your early 20s.
Okay.
And we're going to zigzag throughout our conversation today. We're going to go back to childhood and we're going to go to the future. We'll do it all because that's what money is about. It's about understanding the seasons of life and how money interacts.
Oh, I fucking love this. Okay.
So in my 20s, again, that irrational joy came from being able to buy appetizers. And for everybody here, I want you to think about, you may have been in college, you may have been working at your first job. What was the thing where you said to yourself, I wish I could do that? Or am I ever going to be able to do that? And remember, it's not usually a big thing. It's not, I want to take a round the world trip and stay in all these fancy places. It's often an appetizer. It's being able to pay for your own vacation. It might be, a lot of people joke about it's getting the guac at Chipotle. It might actually be that. There's nothing shameful about a small, vivid aspiration that you had. How do you think everyone listening is going along with this journey so far, Mel?
I think good. Amy?
Okay.
You think we're good? Okay, good. Yeah. My producer's like, this is fantastic.
Okay, good.
We got,
good.
I think we're all right there. I have a question to ask you to go a little deeper in this, because I noticed that, you've spent a lot of time studying psychology and you, of course, help people change the way they think about money. And I would love to ask you about the way in which your formative years as a child and what you experienced as your parents' emotion or conversation around money, how that impacts your mindset around it. And, I'm asking that because I feel like it must be somehow related to this core memory of, I just wish I could go and take myself on vacation. I wish I could buy the guacamole. I wish I didn't have to worry about the needle on the tank of gas getting to empty and not being able to fill it up. And so for me personally, it's interesting. My parents, my father was the first person in his family to go to college, and he had to pay for it. And my mother also went to college and had to pay for it, and she ended up dropping out to have me. And then my dad got into medical school, and my mom worked nights for the IRS and my dad took care of me at night, and then she took care of me during the day. And we lived in public housing while he was a medical student and when he was a resident in Dayton, Ohio. And then I was in fourth grade when my parents were able to purchase their first home. And my dad did not pay off his medical school loans until late into his 30s. But here's the interesting thing about it. Even though we struggled, and I can relate to we never went out to eat when I was a kid. Not until middle school, anyway. And I never remember my parents being stressed out about money.
What do you remember them saying about money?
Nothing. I don't remember them talking about it. And I just had this sense, because there was this ease about it, that if you need something, you figure out how to get it. That there wasn't a lot of griping or complaint. And I know they were trying to make the ends meet. They come from very blue collar, modest families, hardworking. They were very hardworking. And so I just kind of got this thing like money's there when you work for it and you don't need to worry about it. And you know what I mean? Not like I was spoiled or anything. That was not it at all.
Yeah.
But they didn't pass on the stress to me. Now, Chris's family had plenty of money, but there was this huge dialogue. You don't deserve that. We don't have it. You're not going to be spoiled. And so his butt is so clenched when it comes to money. Like the guy's like, how much does the guacamole cost? I'm like, dude, have you seen our checking account? You can afford it. Like he literally adopted this kind of gripping mentality. How does how does that impact the mindset that you have, your early childhood years?
So you just gave us a fantastic journey into your childhood, and if you don't mind,
please,
I'm going to dive a little bit deep and kind of shine a light on what you just told me. Okay. So a lot of this comes from my work on my podcast and, of course, on the Netflix show with individuals and couples. And many people believe that money is simply about numbers. And, of course, the numbers are a very small part of how we experience money. So when you say your family never really talked about money, but there was a sort of ease about it, I'm listening. I'm going, okay. And then it clicks when you tell me they were blue collar and they taught us that if you work hard, money will come. Okay, that's a cohesive belief. I totally agree. Sometimes I speak to couples where one person in the couple grew up, let's say white collar, maybe upper middle class, and the other grew up working class, blue collar. Their beliefs conflict and they can't figure out why. Right? They think it's about, oh, she spends too much at Target or his truck is too expensive. But really, there's this belief, particularly with different class structures, which we never really talk about in America, which is if something's hard, let's just grind harder. And you can grind harder. There's no doubt about that. Law school, medical school. But there's a certain point where grinding a little harder just doesn't work. You have to change the way you think about money. For example, did your parents talk about investing, IRAs, compound interest when you were growing up?
Oh my God, no.
Exactly. And so some of the folks who I speak to, they said, we were talking about investing at age 5 around the dinner table. Here's what happens if you put a quarter in the bank. Now imagine if a couple is meeting and one of them's been talking about investing since age 5 and the other has never talked about investment. That's what we discover when we peel back the curtain and we see how beliefs affect us. So if you're listening, the question I would ask you is, what conversations do you remember your family having when you were young about money? What phrases? Here's some examples that might sound familiar. We can't afford it. We don't talk about money in this family. We're not like those people. We don't need a fancy car, vacation, eating out. Any of these sound? You heard these, or your friends heard these?
No? But I have heard these. Okay. I'm nodding because I'm like, this is exactly what people hear.
Exactly. And so here's the consequence of that. Okay. So you hear the most common one is we can't afford it.
Yes.
Parents just say this like it just comes out of their mouth. Parents, you got to stop, because let me tell you what happens. They end up 40 years later talking to me and they heard we can't afford it 10,000 times growing up, just reflexively. Oh, I want shoes. We can't afford it. I want a trapper keeper. We can't afford it. And then this person, hopefully they end up in a pretty nice job. You know, maybe they read my book. They set up some investments. Maybe they've done well. They have some decent amount of money. They come to me, they go, why do I still feel guilty ordering a salad when I eat out? And my partner is saying, we have the money. Look at our checking account. Why? Well, trace it all the way back to conversations you had starting at age 6. We can't afford it. And it really shows this key principle of money, which is the way you feel about money is highly uncorrelated to how much you've got in the bank.
Okay, say that again.
Yeah. The way you feel about money is highly uncorrelated to how much you've got in the bank. Most of us believe if I have $5,000 more or $50,000 more or $500,000, finally I'll feel safe. And I'm here to deliver some unfortunate news, which is that's never going to happen. Now, you can change the way you feel about money. You can, but a number in the bank is never going to change your feelings about it because it's uncorrelated. You've got to work. If you want to live a rich life, you got to do two things at the same time. One, you got to understand the numbers, the basic numbers of finance. You've got to know your savings rate. You've got to understand the rule of 72. This stuff is actually not complicated. It's really fun. We can talk about them. I'll give you a couple of ratios. It's easy stuff. It's like a sixth grader.
I'm already zoning out on that. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, I want to hear the second part of this.
The second one is you've got to simultaneously work on improving your money psychology. You've got to put a practice into place to start feeling good about money because so much of society tries to get us to feel bad.
I love
you do
this.
those two things, you're going to be doing
I love
very
this
well.
because whether you're listening right now and you've got millions of dollars in the bank and you're set for life, or you are nearly $1 million in debt, like my husband and I used to be over a decade ago, starting with changing your psychology around money changes absolutely everything. And that's what we're going to focus on today, because that is something that we all need to do. Even if you've made a ton of money grinding it out, putting your head down, you probably haven't enjoyed it. And there is a way for you to change the way that you think and relate to and the psychology of money so that you have greater freedom, so that you have possibility, so that you're more present, so that you can be more confident and effective in your decision making. And that's exactly what Ramit is teaching millions of people to do. And it's available to all of us, regardless of where we've come from, what class we're in right now, what we've experienced in our lives. We can all just have a zero on the balance sheet, and we're going to go up from here, because Ramit's going to teach us how to change our psychology. So where exactly do we start, knowing that everybody comes to this conversation dragging historical baggage that they might not even be aware of about their relationship to just money and what it means?
Yeah. Let's imagine that it's the first day and you've decided to join the soccer team.
Okay.
People come with, some people have fancy shoes. Some people have no shoes. Some people are really physically fit. Others haven't run at all in years. And for this metaphor, I'll be the coach.
Okay.
And what I'm going to say is we're all in this together and we're all going to start on the same page.
Okay.
Okay. So I like to start from a place of, we're going to have fun with this. Okay. I'll tell you what we're not going to do. I'm not going to say, pull out this 46-part spreadsheet and let's go through all your spending. Nah, everyone's going to leave. I don't even want to, no one, it's irrelevant. Instead, I want to do something, an exercise together with you, me, and everybody listening.
Okay.
About what I call your money dials. So I'm going to ask you, let's do this together. And everybody listening, I want you to follow along. So Mel, if I asked you, what is something you love to spend money on? Not like, but truly love. Look at that smile. What would it be?
Oh, I love buying dessert. I like, now that I've started, I've gotten out of debt. I make a lot of money. My favorite thing, and I always joke that this is my version of a Lamborghini.
Uh-huh.
When I go out with a group of people, I order every dessert on the menu.
Okay. What does that get you? Tell me about that. Why?
It feels really decadent and fun, and it allows me to sample things without committing. And it's a way to take care of everybody at the table, because everybody kind of secretly wished that, somebody would order one of the desserts.
Yes.
And it's a way to relax kind of that grip, like, oh, I'm only allowed one dessert, so I got to pick the one. It's just like a playful way that's kind of ridiculous. But every time I do it, everyone's like, oh my God, that's so fun. And so I just love doing that. And I'm also a massive gift giver. So I love spending my money on other people and orchestrating gifts and creating experiences for people. Those are my two big things.
I love it. I hear so many things that I'm so thankful I get to highlight some of the things I just heard. So it sounds like your, what I would call a money dial, the thing you love is either gifting or eating out desserts.
Yes.
Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Pick one. Which is the one that gets you really excited?
Gosh, I don't know.
I kind of think it's desserts because you spent like 10 minutes talking about desserts.
Desserts.
Yeah. It's usually very obvious. Like people light up when they talk about.
Well, because I also feel like it is a gift. Because nobody does it for themselves. And it's ridiculous. Okay. Like, why would you order all the desserts knowing everyone's going to take one bite? Because we can. And because it's fun. And
it's very abundant.
Yeah. And it's about abundance and play and like that kind of, it makes me feel like a kid almost.
Okay. I love it. So Here we have Mel in like a Willy Wonka chocolate factory, just like we get to get it all. And it's very abundant. So for everybody listening, the most common money dial or thing you love to spend money on is eating out. Number 2 most common is travel. Number 3 is health and wellness. Number 4 is convenience, which happens to be my money dial. And there's a variety of others, you can search online. Okay, so that's great. For everybody listening, you should identify the thing you love and go into that detail. If you're doing it with a partner, notice how I asked her, why? Tell me what? What does it mean to you? Get curious. And then the second question I have for you, Mel, is if you were able to quadruple your spend on your money dial, what would that look like and feel like for you?
I'd send those desserts to everybody in the restaurant.
Whoa, tell me more.
Just kind of spreading that exuberance and joy and this kind of psychologically, it's not financially extravagant if you can afford to do it. Like, it's not like you went out and spent $200,000 on a car, but there's this level of surprise and exuberance that and extravagance that kind of, there's delight, there's surprise, there's the fact that it tastes good. That if I spread that through a whole restaurant, I think the positive vibes that would go out and the positive energy that would swell in that space would be freaking unbelievable.
Amazing. Okay, I'm gonna ask you to take that and extend it even more.
Oh, okay.
Because I know you're very successful. So let's say you eat out once a month, you could do that, no problem. It wouldn't even affect your bottom line. Let's turn it up even more. Not quadruple. Let's 10x it. Think expansively. Think beyond the confines of a restaurant.
Well, the first thing that came to mind was the Ben and Jerry's Free Cone Day.
Okay.
That they celebrate it was this year their 40th anniversary by having a day where they give everybody a free ice cream cone if they show up. And they typically support a charity, right?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
So you would do that, like a day of, let's say, outside of school or something, or some charity, you're just going to get an ice cream truck and rent it and do that.
Well, when you said school, I was like, how cool would it be if like everybody got dessert at school for free?
Okay. I love your answers. There is a cohesive thread that goes through them. It's generosity, it's surprise, it's delight, and it just happens to be around food. But I'm willing to bet in your life there's a bunch of other things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So for everybody listening, take this example we just heard and apply it to yourself. Let me give you some examples that will help.
Please.
So for most people, like I said, eating out is their number one money dial. And when I ask them to quadruple it, they almost always say the same PG rated joke. They go, well, I'd probably have to watch what I eat because I'd be eating out 4 times a week. Ha 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 ha. I go, ha ha ha. And then I go, all right, listen, that's very linear thinking. The fact that you eat out once, so you're going to quadruple it, you're just going to eat out 4 times. That's linear. Like, okay, you could eat out 4 times a week, but are you going to eat at the same place? And people pause. They start thinking, oh, wait a minute. Okay, so if it's like Chipotle or whatever it is that you eat at, wow. Okay. And I remember this young man in DC, I was speaking there, and he said the same joke, and I had the same unamused response. And I go, where would you eat? And he thought for a second, and he goes, you know what? I have a list of every Michelin-starred restaurant in DC. Young guy. I go, wow, okay, cool. You like food? He goes, yeah, I love it. I go, who would you take with you? And he got really quiet. The entire audience, pin drop silence. And he goes, I would take my family. Why? Because they could never afford to eat at places like that. Now that is a money dial. That is a vision of what you love today. And it could be modest, right? Buying dessert for your friends, that's very generous, also pretty modest. But when you understand, hey, where could I go with this? Could I turn my dial up 2x, 4x, 10x? What would it look like? It wouldn't just be more of the same. I might change the quality. I might change the frequency. If I love clothes, as a young woman in Pasadena did, I asked her, you going to still shop at the same place, H&M? She goes, no. And when we really explored and played, we came up with this idea that one day she could fly to Italy with her mom and they could get something custom made together in Italy. Now, she can't do that today. She can't do it tomorrow. But now she has a vision of what excites her with money. That's how we get started.
Why is it important to start with a vision that's exciting?
Because money is such a drag for most of us. When you think of money, what are the first words that come to mind?
Debt.
Yep. Restriction, overwhelming.
Mistakes.
Am I too late? Mistake. It sucks. So are we surprised that Americans have terrible financial behavior? Well, I'm not really surprised when everything around us basically tells us, don't pay attention to this until it's too late. I mean, it's more exciting to talk about flossing than it is to talk about money. It sucks. But if we start talking about, oh my God, I love to eat. I'm unapologetic about spending extravagantly on the things I love, as long as I cut costs mercilessly on the things I don't. Well, suddenly it's a lot more fun to talk about.
It really is, because I think there's so much shame that we carry about money, because there's all these expectations that you have about how much you should have by now, what you should have done with it. If only I had invested back in the day in Apple, like I missed these opportunities. I should have done this. I should have done that. And that sort of negative story that you keep reinforcing to yourself that then has you go, oh, I can't buy the guacamole. I better not get a latte. Fuck. Yeah. It keeps you stuck in that story. But when you allow somebody to play and dream again, because money, it's not only psychology, it's sort of a vehicle to do those things. Exactly.
Yeah. And I love what you said about the guacamole example, is that because we feel shame, because we feel like it's too late, our field of vision narrows, almost like if you've ever felt like you're about to faint. Everything shrinks, and we shrink our own desires. So I'll often ask people, what is your rich life? And you know what they always say to me? They always go, I want to do what I want, when I want. I go, oh, God,
there we go.
Okay. And then I go, wow, that's so interesting. I never heard that one except for the 8 million times I heard it. I go, so what do you want? And they are stumped, because we never actually thought about what our rich life is. And so then I'm gentle. I want them to come to it, but I also want to have a little fun with them.
Yep.
And so they'll say something like, well, I guess it would be cool if I had a beach house one day, but it doesn't have to be a big beach house. It could be small. It could be a shack. It could be dilapidated. I don't even need anything. I go, what the hell? We're talking about your rich life and you already shrunk your desires in 5 seconds? I don't allow that. I go, dream bigger, and then let's figure out, if your finances support it, what investments you need to make. And hey, maybe you're not going to get a 9-bedroom place in the Hamptons, but maybe you could get a beautiful place, rent it for a week, or buy it in 10 years, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we minimize ourselves unnecessarily.
And then that cuts off our access to authentic inspiration.
Yeah. Nobody's inspired by a tiny vision. Nobody's inspired by the idea like, ooh, I could save 5% on coffee. Who cares? That's not exciting.
It's so true. I am just on pins and needles. I have somebody on the show that I have admired from afar for a very long time. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about none other than Ramit Sethi. He has a simple step-by-step process that he's going to walk us through at zero cost today for how you can change the way you think about money and the 4 simple things that you need to pay attention to in order to make it a reality. I've got sweaty palms. I'm so excited to talk to this guy. So let's just jump into it.